Sometimes a man has to lose everything before he discovers what he's truly made of. That was the bitter truth for 42-year-old Ray Delaney. Just 3 months ago, he had a steady job as a senior mechanic, a wife he adored, 2 kids who were thriving, and a modest but comfortable home in Phoenix. Then, as if life had been waiting to strike him down, tragedy came in waves. His wife Sarah was diagnosed with cancer, and the bills that followed swallowed every dollar they had managed to save. Ray took every overtime shift he could, worked weekends, even fixed neighbors' cars for pocket change, but nothing could keep up with the relentless cost of treatment. When Sarah passed, it shattered more than his heart. It left the family adrift. He lost his job in the downsizing that followed, creditors circled, and soon the only thing left in his name was a rust-stained Honda Civic and an old letter from an attorney. That letter revealed that Ray's estranged grandfather, Samuel Delaney, had left him an inheritance. Not money, not a business, not even stocks. No, Samuel left him 640 acres of barren Arizona desert and a crumbling ranch house that hadn't been lived in for decades. Ray's brother, Mike, nearly doubled over in laughter when he heard. "You're really dragging the kids to that dump? That land isn't worth the gas money you spent to read the letter," Mike sneered. But Ray, for the first time in months, felt something he hadn't felt since Sarah's death, a glimmer of possibility. Samuel had left a strange note saying Ray, and only Ray, would understand the true value of the land. Nobody else believed it. Nobody but Ray. The drive from Phoenix to the ranch felt like an exile. The Civic rattled along the highway, packed with the few belongings they had left, while silence pressed down inside the car. 16-year-old Emma stared out the window, her brown eyes, Sarah's eyes, filled with anger and betrayal. 12-year-old Marcus had given up asking if they were almost there. Both kids thought their father had lost his mind. Just 6 months ago, Emma had been competing in debate tournaments, Marcus had been swinging his bat in Little League, and Sarah had been alive, cooking Sunday dinners and laughing in their tidy kitchen. Now here they were, driving toward a patch of desert none of them knew, to a house Ray had only visited once as a child. He remembered Samuel only faintly, an intimidating man with calloused hands and an air of secrecy. To the rest of the family, Samuel had always been a recluse, an eccentric old man who lived alone in the desert, mailing birthday cards with crisp $20 bills but never showing up in person. To Ray, he was just a shadow. Yet here was this land, handed down like some kind of cryptic challenge. As the sun bled into the horizon and the highway narrowed to a dirt road marked only by a weathered sign that read Delaney Ranch, Ray gripped the steering wheel tighter. He could feel Emma's glare from the passenger seat. He could sense Marcus's unease from the back. But beneath his exhaustion and grief, there was a stubborn determination. Everyone believed he was dragging his family into a wasteland, but he believed Samuel had left him something more than dirt, something no one else had the patience or the heart to see. The ranch came into view like a ghost from another time. What had once been painted white was now peeling to gray. The front porch sagged, the roof was pocked with holes, and the windows were covered in warped plywood. "This is it," Marcus whispered, staring at the skeletal remains of a fence that leaned more than it stood. Emma folded her arms, shaking her head. "Dad, this isn't even safe. We can't live here." But Ray ignored the sting of her words. He had spent his life fixing broken things. Engines, transmissions, even people's hopes when their cars gave up on them. A house was just another machine with bigger parts. He forced open the warped door, and dust swirled in the sunlight streaming through cracks in the boards. Inside, the air smelled of leather, wood polish, and time. The living room was sparse but intact, with a cracked stone fireplace and shelves still stacked with books on geology, mining, and engineering. That's when Ray noticed a photograph on a nightstand in the master bedroom. Samuel, young and sharp-eyed, standing beside a beautiful woman Ray had never known existed. Beneath the photo was a stack of letters tied with ribbon and one sealed envelope with his name scrawled across it, Raymond. His hands shook as he opened it. Samuel's words were direct, almost commanding. The land has secrets, boy. Look deeper than the surface. The real treasure isn't what most people think to look for. The compass in my desk still works. Take care of Emma and Marcus. They'll need you more than ever. A chill ran through Ray as he folded the letter and slid it into his pocket. It wasn't just an inheritance. It was a puzzle, one Samuel had guarded for decades, waiting for Ray to solve. The next morning, frustration ran high. Emma complained there was no internet, no running water, and no milk for cereal. Marcus grumbled that even the toaster didn't work. But just as Ray was about to feel defeated, Marcus discovered something inside Samuel's old roll-top desk, a brass compass. Unlike any compass Ray had ever seen, it was engraved with symbols and markings he didn't recognize. When he held it steady, the needle didn't point north, it pointed southeast, tugging toward the back of the property. The words inscribed on the back deepened the mystery. Truth lies beneath. SD 1963. Emma raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite herself. "It's broken," she said, but Ray wasn't so sure. When they followed the compass outside, it spun wildly before settling again, always pulling toward the same spot. Together they walked until the compass needle trembled over an old stone well, half buried in dirt and scrub. Carved faintly into the stones were the words Delaney Mine, 1923. Ray's heart pounded as he brushed away the sand. This wasn't just a water well. It was an entry point. His grandfather hadn't been a lonely hermit. He had been protecting something all along. Marcus leaned over the stone edge, whispering, "Dad, what's down there?" Ray stared into the darkness, clutching the compass as if it might answer him. Samuel's words echoed in his mind, "Look deeper than the surface." Curiosity drove Ray to search deeper inside the house. In the basement, behind stacks of crates, he found what looked like a steel door hidden in the concrete wall. To his surprise, the lock turned easily, revealing shelves lined with boxes, maps, and a leather-bound journal embossed with the words Mining Survey, Delaney Property. The entries stretched back a century, starting with Ray's great-great-grandfather in 1923. Page after page documented geological surveys, mineral samples, magnetic readings, and warnings about government agents asking questions. Each generation had added their findings, with Samuel himself continuing the work through the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. One entry made Ray's blood run cold. The mineral deposits are extensive and valuable beyond measure, but men in suits keep circling. I will wait until the right person comes along. Someone who can be trusted with the responsibility. At the back of the room, sealed in protective sleeves, were letters from mining companies offering joint ventures, environmental reports Samuel never signed, and maps marking areas of high magnetic activity, all pointing back to that southeastern quadrant where the old well stood. Emma and Marcus joined him on the dusty floor, spreading the documents out like pieces of a treasure map. Marcus's eyes widened. "It's like a real-life adventure." Emma frowned, thoughtful. "Dad, if this is true, we might be sitting on something worth millions." Ray looked at the compass glowing faintly in his hand. For the first time since Sarah's death, hope stirred inside him. Maybe Samuel had been right. Maybe he was meant to find this. At dawn the next day, a knock on the door startled Ray. Outside stood an older woman with silver hair and a kind smile, holding the reins of a horse. "You must be Raymond," she said warmly. "I'm Dolores Martinez. Samuel mentioned me." She offered eggs, milk, and bread, then asked if she could finally see the workshop Samuel had kept locked for decades. Together, they pried it open, and what they found took their breath away. It wasn't a hobbyist's shed. It was a laboratory. Workbenches covered in survey tools, core samples, mineral testing kits, and even a small smelting furnace. The back wall held a massive hand-drawn map of the property, covered in notations, pins, and depth measurements. At the center of the map, circled in red, was the old well. Dolores' eyes softened with awe. So that's what he was up to all those years. Then came the discovery that changed everything. A military footlocker filled with Samuel's records. He had once worked in Army intelligence, conducting classified geological surveys during the Korean War. Afterward, he returned to his own land and continued, using military-grade methods. In the corner of the workshop, Ray found a crucible containing a strange, refined metal with Samuel's note beside it. Purity exceeds 94%. Estimated reserves, 3.2 million ounces recoverable. Emma read aloud the accompanying letters from geological firms. Rare earth elements, critical for advanced electronics and renewable energy. Ray realized this wasn't about gold or silver. This was about resources the modern world would pay billions for. Samuel hadn't just left him land. He had left him a key to a fortune hidden beneath the desert floor. But not everyone shared Ray's vision. Within days, his brother Mike showed up in a cloud of dust, his truck barreling down the access road. "What the hell are you doing, Ray?" Mike barked, glaring at Dolores and the kids. "This land isn't worth anything. Stop wasting time chasing some crazy dream." Ray clenched his jaw, knowing the argument was coming. Mike rattled off offers from real estate agents, scoffing at the idea of treasure. "Sell it, split it, and move back to civilization before you ruin those kids' lives," he demanded. But this time, Ray didn't shrink. Emma stepped forward, her voice sharp. "We're not playing Uncle Mike, we're learning. Mom would have wanted us to try." Marcus, clutching the compass, added softly, "We're a family again here." Dolores placed a hand on Ray's shoulder. "Samuel spent 40 years preparing for this. Maybe instead of mocking him, you should ask why you're so afraid he might succeed." Mike's face reddened, his words faltering. For the first time in years, Ray looked at his brother and saw fear not of failure, but of being wrong. "You're scared," Ray said quietly. "Scared will prove there's another way to live. Scared that maybe Samuel trusted me for a reason." Silence hung heavy before Mike shook his head and stormed off, leaving dust swirling in his wake. Ray turned back to his children. They were no longer doubting. They were waiting. Emma's eyes gleamed with determination. Marcus clutched the compass like it was Excalibur. "Dad," Emma said, steady and strong, "I think we should start digging." That night, Ray discovered one final envelope hidden behind Samuel's maps, an official geological survey from 1965. His hands trembled as he read. Extensive rare earth deposits confirmed. Estimated value, $300 million. Immediate development recommended. Emma's voice caught as she whispered, "Dad, if it was worth that then, imagine what it's worth now." But alongside the report was Samuel's personal journal. In shaky handwriting, Samuel revealed the true legacy. The easy path is to sell and walk away rich. The hard path is to develop responsibly for family, community, and future generations. The real treasure isn't money. It's proving that profit and responsibility can exist together. Ray closed the journal, his eyes wet. This wasn't just about fortune. It was about character, about teaching Emma and Marcus what it meant to build rather than run, to honor rather than exploit. He looked at his children, then at Dolers, and finally at the compass pointing steadily toward the well. "Tomorrow," he said, voice steady, "we start, not just to dig for what's buried, but to finish what Samuel started." The desert was silent, but Ray could almost hear his grandfather's voice carried on the wind. "Look deeper than the surface." And to you listening right now, let me ask, if you were Ray, would you choose the easy path or the hard one? That's the question Samuel left his family, and maybe it's the question we all face in our own way. If this story inspired you, if you want to hear more hidden treasure tales, family legacies, and stories that prove the human spirit can turn ruin into redemption, make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a comment with where you're tuning in from, and share this with someone who needs a reminder that sometimes the greatest treasures are the ones buried in the ground, but the ones we carry inside us.